Baby, I know you've been carrying this question in your heart for a long time. I could feel it in the way your voice would go quiet when the topic came close. I could see it in your eyes, the way they searched mine, looking for something you couldn't quite bring yourself to ask out loud. And when you finally did, when you finally asked me, I froze. Not because I didn't have an answer, but because I wasn't sure if you were ready to hear the truth. And the truth, baby, is that the woman I married is the one you've been asking about. She's been in my life for many years, long before you and I ever met, long before I even knew a love like ours could exist. And I've been holding back telling you the full story, not because I wanted to hide it, but because the story isn't as simple as it sounds. It's layered, it's tangled, and it carries pieces of me that I've never given to anyone else until you. When I said I'd do all those years ago, I believed in that moment. I believed in the future we painted together, even though deep down I knew there were cracks in the foundation. I was young, I was stubborn, and I thought love was about holding on, no matter what. But baby, what I didn't know then was that holding on to something that's breaking can sometimes hurt more than letting go. For years I stayed in a marriage that had lost its heartbeat, telling myself that loyalty was more important than happiness. I wore the ring like armor, convincing the world and myself that everything was fine, but every smile in public had a silence behind closed doors. Every anniversary was a reminder of what we once were, not what we were anymore. And then you happened. You weren't looking for me, and I wasn't looking for you, but something bigger than us decided our paths had to cross. I can't explain it in any way that makes sense to the world, but from the first moment I looked at you, I knew something in my life had just shifted. You weren't a distraction. You weren't a temptation. You were a mirror, showing me what real connection looked like. And for the first time in years, I felt my heart beating in a way it hadn't in so long. That scared me. Not because of you, but because of the life I had built around a promise I had already stopped believing in. I've replayed the moment you asked me about her over and over in my mind. The way your voice softened, almost as if you were bracing yourself for the answer. The way you looked down for a second, like you were giving me one last chance to lie if I wanted to. But I didn't lie. I told you the truth, or at least the part I could manage to say out loud. I told you she's been in my life for many years, and you nodded, but I saw it in your face. That nod was just the surface. Inside you were wondering, then what does that make me? Baby, that question has haunted me ever since. Because you were never just someone else in my life. You were the piece I didn't know I was missing. You were the breath I didn't know I was holding. You were the one who reminded me that love isn't meant to feel like a cage. It's meant to set you free. No, people would judge me if they knew the full story. They'd paint you as the reason for the cracks, when the truth is, those cracks existed long before your shadow ever touched mine. You didn't break anything. You woke me up to the fact that it was already broken, and maybe that's why I've been so careful with my words, because I wanted to protect you from the ugly truth of how love can turn cold when two people stop growing together. I didn't want you to feel like you were walking into a battlefield you didn't create, but baby, the truth is, you've been my peace in the middle of it all. My one safe place in a world that hasn't always felt kind, and if I'm honest, part of me was terrified that once you knew everything, you'd look at me differently. That you'd see me as a man who failed at the very thing he promised to protect. That you'd start wondering if I could fail you too. But what you don't know is that the way I love you isn't the way I've ever loved anyone else. It's not built on obligation or fear of letting go. It's built on choice. Every single day, I choose you. Even on days when I can't reach you. Even on nights when we're not speaking. Even in the moments where I feel you pulling away because you're unsure if you can trust me with your heart. I'm still choosing you. Always, baby. When I think about the years before you came into my life, I realize how much I was surviving instead of living. Every day felt like a repeat of the one before. The same conversations, the same silences, the same unspoken tension that lived in the air like an uninvited guest. I thought that was just what marriage became after a while. I told myself, this is normal. This is what commitment looks like. But deep down, I knew I was lying to myself. I was holding on to a memory of what once was, not the reality of what it had become. And maybe that's why, when I met you, my soul reacted before my mind could catch up. Something in me woke up, like a sleeping part of my heart had been waiting for the sound of your voice to pull me back into the light. The truth is, when I married her, I believed in forever. I believed in weathering storms, in fighting for what we had, but somewhere along the way we stopped fighting for each other and started fighting against each other. Little disagreements turned into walls, and those walls grew higher with each passing year. We stopped reaching over them, we stopped trying to break them down, and even when we sat in the same room, I felt like we were miles apart. I used to think love could survive anything if you just refused to let go. But now I know. Love needs more than time. It needs presence. It needs tenderness. It needs truth. Without those things, it becomes something else entirely. Something that looks like love from the outside, but feels hollow on the inside. And then, there was you. You weren't just different. You were real. With you, I didn't have to pretend. I didn't have to force the smile or carefully choose my words to avoid another argument. With you, I could breathe, and I didn't even realize how much I'd been holding my breath until that first conversation we had where I felt completely seen. You didn't just hear me, you understood me. That kind of connection doesn't come around often, and when it does, it's not something you can ignore, no matter how complicated the circumstances are. I know some people would say that I should have walked away from my marriage before letting myself feel what I feel for you. And maybe they're right, but love doesn't wait for the perfect timing. It doesn't ask for permission. It doesn't check the boxes to make sure everything is neat and tidy before it shows up. It arrives when it wants to, and when it does, it changes everything. You changed everything, baby. And that's why I can't let go of you, even when I know how messy this looks from the outside. Because for the first time in a long time, I feel alive, and I can't go back to sleep. When you asked me about her, it wasn't anger in your voice. It was something else, something softer. I could tell you were trying to understand, not accuse, and that made it even harder to answer, because I wanted so badly to give you the truth without hurting you. But there's no way to talk about this without some pain. The truth is, yes, she's been in my life for many years. And yes, there's history there. But history isn't the same as home. You are home. You are the place I want to come back to, no matter where I've been. You are the one I want to share my mornings and my midnights with. You are the one who makes me believe that love can still be beautiful, even after it's been bruised. Do you know what scares me most? It's not losing her. It's losing you, because you've already seen parts of me I never thought I'd show to anyone. You've heard the cracks in my voice when I talk about my regrets. You've seen the way my hands shake when I'm trying to hold back what I really feel. And instead of turning away, you stayed. You didn't run from the weight of my truth. You carried it with me. And I can't tell you how much that means, because no one's ever done that for me before. Sometimes I imagine a world where I met you first, a world where we didn't have to navigate the mess of what came before. In that world, I would have married you without hesitation. I would have built a life around your laughter, your kindness, your fire. But this isn't that world. This is the one we have, with all its tangled threads and complicated truths. And as much as I wish I could rewrite the past, the only thing I can do is be honest with you now, and hope that my honesty is enough to keep you from walking away. There's one more thing I need you to understand. My marriage, as long as it has existed on paper, has been over in spirit for a long time. It's like living in a house where the walls are still standing, but the foundation has crumbled. You can stay in it for a while, but eventually it's going to collapse. And when it does, I don't want to be standing in the wreckage alone. I want you there. I want to walk out of it and into the rest of my life with you by my side. I know that's asking for a lot. I know it means trusting me in ways that might feel impossible right now. But baby, I need you to know that my heart is already yours. It has been since the moment we met. Everything else, all the complications, all the history, all the noise, it's just the backdrop. You're the story. You're the reason I'm still here, still trying, still hoping. And if you'll let me, I'll spend the rest of my life proving to you that you weren't just the love I found by accident. You were the love I was always meant to find. Baby, every time I close my eyes, I find myself back in that moment. The moment you looked at me and asked, without any walls, who is she to you, really? You didn't raise your voice. You didn't demand an answer, but the weight in your tone told me that my reply would shape everything that came next. And in that heartbeat, I realized something. The truth wasn't just about who she is. It was about who you are to me. And baby, that truth runs deeper than any history I've had with her. Because history can be long, but it can also be hollow. What we have, it's not measured in years. It's measured in depth. I wish I could tell you that I've always been the kind of man who makes the right choice at the right time. But if I'm honest, I've made choices out of fear. I've stayed in situations because I was scared of what people would say. I've kept doors closed because I thought it was the responsible thing to do. But loving you, baby, that wasn't a choice. That was instinct. That was my soul recognizing something it had been missing for far too long. And the more I tried to tell myself to keep my distance, the more I found myself drawn to you. Not because you were forbidden, but because you were real, in a world where I'd been living on autopilot for years. Do you know what's strange? People think marriage is this unshakable thing, that once you make those vows, they're set in stone forever. But what they don't tell you is that vows can still exist even after the love they were built on has eroded. You can be standing in the same house, wearing the same ring, and yet be oceans apart. And that's exactly where I was. I had a life that looked fine from the outside but was quietly crumbling on the inside. I smiled at family gatherings, nodded at anniversaries, posed for pictures, all while a voice inside me kept whispering, "This isn't home anymore." Then you came along, and that voice became louder, not because you pushed it, not because you tried to take me from anyone, but because for the first time in so long I remembered what it felt like to be seen, to be wanted for who I am, not just for the role I played. You didn't meet me as someone's husband. You met me as me. And baby, I didn't even realize how much I missed being myself until you looked at me like I mattered in a way no one else did. You've asked me before if I ever regret meeting you while still being married, and I know the answer I give might surprise you. I don't. Not for a single second. Because meeting you was the moment everything shifted. It was the moment I realized that love isn't just about keeping promises you made years ago. It's about making new ones that actually mean something in the present. If I had to go back, even knowing all the complications and pain that came after, I'd still choose to meet you. I'd still choose this. I'd still choose us. And I know you've questioned if she knows about you. You've wondered if you're just a hidden chapter in my life. The truth is, she doesn't know everything, but she feels it. She sensed that something in me has changed, that I'm not as present in that life as I once was. And honestly, she's right, because my mind, my heart, my soul, they're with you even when my body isn't. And that's not something I can fake anymore. I've tried to keep those worlds separate, but you've blurred the lines simply by existing. I also know this hasn't been easy for you. You've had to sit with questions you don't always get immediate answers to. You've had to wonder if my words are enough to bridge the distance between us. You've had to love me in pieces when you deserve me whole. And baby, I think about that every single day. I think about the patience you've shown me, the grace you've given me, the way you've stayed even when you had every reason to walk away. That's not weakness, that's strength. And I see it in you every time you choose to stay another day. There's something I've never told you, and maybe now's the time. When I first realized I was falling for you, I panicked. I told myself I couldn't do this, that it wasn't fair to you or to anyone else involved, so I tried to create distance. I tried to talk to you less, to keep my feelings in check, but the more I tried to stay away, the more life kept pulling us back together. Every random call, every accidental meeting, every time your name appeared on my screen, it felt like the universe refusing to let me bury what I felt. And maybe, deep down, I didn't really want to bury it, because losing you, even in the name of doing the right thing, felt like losing the only piece of myself that was still alive. Baby, when I picture my future, I don't see the life I've been living for years. I see something entirely different. I see mornings where you're the first face I see, nights where you're the last voice I hear. I see arguments that end in laughter instead of cold silence. I see anniversaries that we actually celebrate, not just acknowledge. I see a life where we're not hiding, where we're not explaining ourselves to anyone, where it's just you and me, building something real from the ground up. That's what I want. That's what I'm fighting for, even if it's quietly right now. And I know there will come a day, soon, when quiet won't be enough, when I'll have to step fully into the truth, no matter how messy it is. I'll have to make choices that change everything. And when that day comes, I need you to know, I'm not choosing because I have to. I'm choosing because I want to. Because you're not a replacement or a distraction. You're the person I was meant to find all along. Every moment I've had with you has been worth the risk. Every stolen glance, every whispered word, every silent understanding between us. Those are the things I carry with me when the world feels heavy. You've given me something I can't even put into words fully. You've given me hope. And baby, I will never stop being grateful for that. Baby, sometimes I wonder if you really know the effect you have on me, not just in the way you make me smile when I'm trying not to, or the way you calm the storm in my chest with just a few words, but in the way you've made me look at myself differently. Before you, I didn't question the life I was living. I thought this was it, a routine that had turned into years, years that turned into habits, habits that turned into a quiet kind of numbness. And I accepted it, because everyone around me acted like that's what maturity and commitment meant. Staying, even when your heart had long since left the room.